Hello, and I am Screaming, and today I'm reading Reddit, male to female. Let's go. I'm not sure if I'm the only one that feels this way. I'm not sure what's happening. I know that I have thoughts of wishing I was born cis, and that there are times where I envied cis women, but now sometimes I feel like I envy anyone who was born with female reproductive system, including trans men and non binary people, etc. And I know it's not their fault for making me feel this way, and it's something that I have to work through, but it just feels so painful. Weird how you associate. You're a woman, right? Trans woman. Why are you envious of organs exactly? Because being a woman isn't about having reproductive organs, right? I thought woman was this much more special thing. Why are you envying female reproductive organs? Why are you envying female sex organs? Is it because it's actually not about gender, it is about sex? They always want to say sex and gender are different. Well, if by their logic it's different, that does mean all trans women are still male because they're changing their gender, not their sex. And sex does impact your gender. That's why I, a female, cannot identify as a cis man or a trans woman. But that's why you envy cis women for their organs the same way you envy trans men for their organs. And I will say organs because it makes it sound like Buffalo Bill, and that feels accurate. Of course, we sometimes envy uterus havers. Uterus havers. Man, I wish there was an easier word for this. What about the people that there are people that have two uteruses? A double uteri wielder. What do we call them? Often feel similarly. Like, why couldn't I have been born as a cis girl? With all that comes with that, good or bad. It's weird. I carry pads and tampons for my friends or any other girl who desperately needs one in the bathroom. But then I also feel like, why can't I get periods too? By that, I mean not just the hormonal cycle, although it's cool that some trans girlies get that, but also the bleeding and everything else that comes with having a uterus. And other things like, why couldn't I be born with the parts I needed to get pregnant and have my own child the way I want to? I know the periods part is kind of weird because every cis girl says, "Trust me, you don't want it." But it also feels like this shared experience of what society understands as womanhood. People talk about that I am missing out on and will never fully be able to empathize with the way that I want to or commiserate with. Yes, I know NBs get them too, and so do trans men. So it's not really tied to womanhood, but the way society talks about it sometimes makes me feel a tiny bit left out. Maybe that's more of a society needs to pick more inclusive way to talk about stuff that isn't gender problem and less of a womanhood thing. That wouldn't affect you though, right? Like regardless of how it's seen, you feel left out because you don't have a period. Not because society isn't talking about you having a period. They talk about you guys having periods all the time, even though you don't. Hormonal shifts, yeah, that's gonna. I'm sure that causes some stomach cramping. Yes, I am sure that the parts of your male organs that are situated in your abdomen. Yeah, I bet you can feel discomfort around with the amount of estrogen you are pumping into your body or whatever else. I'm sure you get cramping there, but it's weird that oh trans women have periods. Okay, but I still want to be able to like bleed. Trans women are women. Okay, but I want to have a baby. I thought womanhood was not tied to giving birth. I thought womanhood was not tied to the organs. But these people, these men, still talk about it this way. Weird how that works. Oh, it's gender. It's gender. It's gender. It's a social construct. But also, I am envious of this biological impossibility for me. Always funny, oh, I want to be a girl. You are a girl. Okay, but I want to be a cis girl. See, they want something that's impossible. They want something that they cannot get. Why why make them feel like this is possible? Speaking of, can I become a beautiful woman? That's really all I want. I want to be a woman. I want to wear dresses, put on makeup. I want to be the most feminine and basic woman there is. Pilates, Lululemon outfits, dresses, makeup, lingerie. I hate being a stupid man that can't express himself the way he wants. You can. It's happened to thousands of people, and it can happen to you too. Yes, please. Being a man isn't for me. I prefer being a lady. I'm glad womanhood is based around clothes and consumerism. Oh, Pilates, Lululemon outfit, not again, dresses. At least that. Okay, makeup. First of all, men wear makeup all the time. Just ask all the trans men. They love makeup. In- Imply that wearing makeup makes them more feminine or more womanly. They hate it. But then specifically Lululemon. Oh my god, I want to go to Pilates with the girls. I love womanhood being whittled down to a stereotype. It's so good. It's so nice. Oh, and again, oh, you can do it. It can happen to you too. Can I be a woman? Yes, you can. You can be whatever you want. Woo! Way, yay! Weird how you still feel dysphoria. Weird how you still envy cis women. Weird how you can get what you want, but you're still unhappy. It's almost like there isn't a thing to make you happy. Because okay, you can get on hormones, develop gynecomastia, good for you. Um, oh, well, you see, that only does so much for your skeletal system. And as a man, that developed differently. So let's get you some facial feminization surgery. I wonder why they call it that when they're shaving down the face so much to try to make it look feminine. I wonder if that implies something. I wonder if that implies a difference. Okay, so yeah, so you have the gynecomastia, you had the surgery for your face. You get the surgery down there. Let's say everything goes well and great. But you still can't get pregnant. And even after all this time, you still wonder what could have been if you could have been cis. And oh, all the years that you had to miss out on your life because were worried about transitioning. And now you're so far down the line and it's you're still gonna feel dysphoria, whether it's over your shoulders or your thick necks or your big hands or your weird pelvis. I don't care if the estrogen moves the fat to your hips. Still very boxy. Weird after everything, whether it's nothing or everything, you still don't feel like women. Whether all it takes is just saying you're a woman or what it takes is hormones and surgeries, either way you're not happy. Speaking of not happy, does anyone else feel like much of the online femboy community is kind of encouraging fetishization of trans women, of trans identity? Sorry. It's very much giving me Belle Delphine vibes at this point with what I'm saying. Like, I feel like everyone memes or ignores these people, but I genuinely feel like some people need to call their community out at some point because of the amount of the community who fetishize themselves, and a lot of the ones online basically dress and subscribe to some sort of caricature with a stereotypical Amazon Basics outfit that you'd see in a movie. And every time I have to socially interact with a dude in public that has even a tiny inkling of attraction towards trans people or gender diversity, they can't help but tell you about how much they fetishize trans people and how much they love femboys or some shit. It's really weird. But that community also feeds into it. Like, there's even streamers who beg for donations and say they'll take HRT, etc., if people donate or make an OF. Does anyone else not think it's kind of weird and problematic? I think it's kind of sad that this is many people's only exposure to gender diversity. It very much reminds me of Belle Delphine, but more normalized. This is absolutely not to hate on feminine men. It just feeling a bit critical of the associations with the term femboy at the moment and how the community often feeds into fetishizing trans people or the whole trick or trap culture. What do you mean that men that take an interest in sexualized feminine males also might see an overlap with them and trans women? Why would that be? It's odd that it's odd that there's this like issue that there's this overlap. Like, why is it such an issue for trans women that femboys exist and are visible and people can see them? The same way it's an issue for the trans men that tomboys exist and are visible. Weird how that works. Why would that's just a man? Why would that even be comparable to you, a woman? I don't see what it is here. Also, isn't that kink shaming? People can first of all, people can wear what they want. Um, Second of all, get that bag, queen. You do what you want, boo. Why do you have an issue with a community fetishizing themselves? And also, hmm, I I don't know if this is the subreddit to talk about this on. I might have to find this post at a later date, but I recall reading at some point someone bringing up, "Hey, there's a lot of teenagers in this subreddit. Should we maybe lock this down as adults and, not let any kids into it?" Because I don't like the idea of them saying that we're influencing teenagers. I don't want to be called a groomer. And someone basically came in with, "They're gonna call us groomers either way." Oh, well, I guess that's a fine reason to talk about, tucking and boofing your progesterone in front of in a online space where 13-year-olds come to talk about how they wish their parents just could understand that they're actually women. Yeah. So I don't know. I'd be careful talking on male to female there. I have to agree. But also, it's kind of not their fault how people can't tell the difference between femboys and actual trans women. This whole generalization of sissies, cross-dressers, femboys, and us trans women is not really their fault. It has more to do with society being ignorant as fuck and the industry. I'm I'm sorry, I don't know the exact differences between a male wearing women's clothes, a male wearing women's clothes, a male wearing women's clothes, and more men wearing women's clothing. I'm sorry, I can't tell the differences. I can't tell all the nuance between, well, obviously he's got striped thigh highs, and that one only has plain thigh highs with cat paws on the bottom. So that one's clearly the trans woman. Oh, no, no, no. No, no. The male in the dress there, that is a man. The one over there is a woman. Why would this possibly get mixed up? Why do we even have to compare, you know, men to women in this situation? Why are people getting this mixed up and overlap? How could this be? The undercurrent and sometimes overcurrent misogyny in all spaces, even trans ones, hurts. It feels inescapable. At worst, people are being outwardly trans misogynistic, and at best, people don't know what trans misogyny is and think that it's just misogyny when it happens to trans people. I wish I could just snap my fingers and educate everyone online about intersectional oppression. Outside of trans groups, it's even worse. Mainstream cis-majority subreddits view us as laughingstocks, the punchline to a joke that is our existence. And it isn't that. If it isn't that, they sexualize us while simultaneously shaming us. Uh, yeah, it is kind of a joke, is it not? You cannot be female. It feels like a classic just fairy tale of people going after something that they just can't, that they're envious of something and they pursue it to such a degree that they lose chunks of themselves that they did not appreciate beforehand. It is just poetic, and it is just perfect. It's, cutting off your nose to spite your face sort of thing. You hate your male body so much, and what are you gonna do to it? Well, you ain't getting a female body out of it, that's for sure. Whereas the sexualization, yeah, that's gonna happen. If you're taboo, if you're a category, you're gonna get that. Males males cross dressing, like it or not, is a fetish. You're just gonna have to deal with there are gay men out there, or bisexual men, or whatever, that are interested in feminine males, regardless of the level of femininity. Whether it's, oh, he's just got, I don't know, soft lips, soft full lips, or he goes out in full drag, dressed to the nines as a woman. And outside of all the body forms and the clothes to make it look like it has curves and all the makeup and stuff, it's still a male. Comment down here. Ah, yes, the classic trans woman talks about difficulties she's facing, and trans men flock around and yell about how they're being ignored, how they also have struggles, and how trans women silence and oppress them. Trans men, of course, have struggles, and their feelings about those struggles are valid, and they deserve to be heard. Mm-hmm. But holy fuck, you can't talk about trans femme problems outside of male to female without getting downvoted and shouted down for not also considering how trans masks are doing. Like, and if you stand your ground and say, I just want to vent about this problem, guys, then they shout trans misandry from the rooftops for the next 14 hours and make like 3 dozen posts across all trans subreddits about how you're silencing them. And on top of that, you get a Reddit cares message. It's even outside of trans spaces, which is really impressive in a really negative and soul crushing way. Oh. I I have to agree with both sides here. Cuz like I agree with the males. I agree with the male to females that the females the females probably can't let you do anything without them crying about it and talking about how much they need the attention to. I agree. I know how women are. Oh, I'm sorry. I know how uterus havers are, or uh post having uterus havers are. I know how they are, attention seeking. I have no doubt that like they get their boxers in a twist because trans women exist, and the sexism and all that or whatever. And they do post a lot. I've read plenty of the posts where they complain about, oh my god, we're being silenced. We can't talk in trans spaces. I agree with the males there. But also no, the females kind of have a point. You go to any trans subreddit that isn't gendered, it's full of mainly males. I wonder if that just has anything to do with the demographics of Reddit. I do wonder that. Uh, So I get where the females are coming from when they say that like they don't get as many places to talk about it. I'd say overall, they get they get a bit of a shorter end of the stick because yes, trans women are represented more, but also because feminists, regardless of trans identity, they don't really like men. A lot of trans men are finding that out. Where even if you're like, oh, but I used to be a woman, they're still like, I don't care, I hate men. It's funny how that works. Ah, you know, the typical male and female clashings. Well, that's the bottom. I, 39 female, pansexual, had the best year of my life, moved out of my crappy camper and 20-year abusive marriage into my new partner's Suburban. She was so supportive, loving, and kind, and literally the other half of my soul, and was the catalyst to my transition. I learned that I've been trans literally my whole life and how to support myself in it. Started HRT on Christmas. I've had massive changes in lots of ways, good and bad. I honestly feel blessed. But I like guys now more than ever. More now than ever. And that makes her very uncomfortable. Today she expressed that she needs to know I'm not more into guys and I need to go find out as I've never had a boyfriend. Looks like I'm not only single again, but homeless again in the same night. Got $6 though, and my Benjamin, so it's not all that bad. Sorry for the long post. I'm just crazy depressed. After edit, I learned on my own that she's an anxious avoidant. After doing some self searching, I realized that I had become very dependent on her for my emotional well being. We finally had a chance to get together and talk it out. The pressure of holding me together has become too much every day, and she interpreted my instability as unhappiness. Searching for a reason, she'd come to the conclusion that I, who had admitted in the past an interest in dating men, but never trying, might be turning into a straight girl with the increase since my transition. I also wanted known that we did have an argument a few days before this decision. I offered her space, which she agreed, and she needed, and I left for a few days. This gave her the impression that I had somewhere to go. I'm sorry, she kicked you out because you might be attracted to men, even though you're also attracted to her? That's super shitty and unreasonable. No, I don't think so. Um, I think if the 40-year-old man who dropped out of the marriage that he was in for half of his life and crawled into my Suburban, started expressing that he might have an interest in men, I could see why that would be a cutoff for most women. That would be a hard line. Um, no, I think that's pretty understandable. Now, kind of mixed, because I mixed feelings with the women like this. Because on one hand, I feel like a lot of these women probably behave or act in a way that 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 would attract a man who would eventually turn trans. I do think a lot of them are like that. Like if you're going to rallies, if you're a she they woman, if you're all into the activism and gender identity and being polyamorous, I could see how the man you date would end up being trying to be a woman. Um, I would kind of say that's on you, because a lot of these women, even as feminist as they are, they still wanted the men that they got with. Um, so I have a hard time feeling bad for those ones where it's like you laid the stepping stones for your man to start wearing women's panties. I feel like I'm sure occasionally there are ones that get blindsided by it, and that's horrifying. That would be horrifying. You get with a man, he is a man, acts like a man, and hits you with a truck one day that he needs to cross dress. Like the horror to that, especially when they have children. Speaking of abusive marriage, It could be. You know, it could be. But also to some of these people, to this man, telling him not to cross dress would be abusive. Telling him that his grown ass at 40 years old doesn't look good as a woman, that would be abusive, I'm sure. I'd say you have to be a bit cruel to be kind, and I think it's nice to tell someone they look like shit and that they have no chance, um, than it is to smile and wave them on as they walk off a cliff or walk off into homelessness. Learning a hard lesson. Last night was my friend's birthday, so we went bar hopping. Everything was great. We had a fun time until we got to the last bar. Every one of my friends started talking with different people. They're all cis, and I was just expecting to chill until we decided to go home. Here comes a man, eager to talk to me, charming, respectful, and called me beautiful. I felt no pressure from him and thought he was a really great guy. He didn't know I was trans. I've always been of the mind that I would disclose to any partners about my situation. Why risk death? I thought. I also believed that, while I didn't think myself ugly, I thought I was pretty visibly trans. Evidently, I wasn't. What sucks is this man took it amazingly well. I was heartbroken when he expressed he was no longer interested. He took the time to assure me that I was still an amazing person. He just wasn't interested in a trans girl. Fair. I don't expect all cis men to be interested. It just really fucking sucks. In a way, I should be delighted. I guess I fucking pass. But at the same time, this experience only made me feel like a fraud. Like I was absolutely worthless. I don't know how I'll ever recover from this pain. Fuck dating. Fuck relationships. Why bother anymore? Edit. Just wanted to thank everyone for their kind words. It definitely still stings, but I'm feeling a lot better after having slept on it. To be completely honest, my desire to deal with dating is a bit dead at the moment. But if anything, knowing I pass does give me some comfort. I'll get over this. Okay, first of all, you don't know that you pass. Just because a man at a bar who, let's face it, if he's at a bar, you were bar hopping and that was the last one you went to, yeah, last bar you got to, that guy could have been there for a while. So you don't know you pass just because a guy in a bar couldn't tell you were male. Um, Same with like I've been misgendered for my short hair and baggy clothing. Some people don't pay attention, some people have bad eyesight. Just because that happens does not mean that other people could not tell you are male. There's also pity passing. Consider the fact that you could be running into people that can tell you're trans, but avoid misgendering you because they know how mentally unstable you people are. So it's not that you pass, it's that they view you as a mentally unstable male and um they act in a way to try to appease you. So pity passing, a lot of them assume pity passes mean that they just don't get clocked. Yeah, sure, with that thick fucking neck, those massive shoulders, God, the foreheads. On to the rest of this, though. I find it interesting that this one does mention why risk death. I disclose to any potential partners. Because a lot of them try to push that disclosing would actually be more dangerous to them. Telling someone before you hook up with them, something that you know potentially might be a deal breaker. Hiding that apparently is safer in some people's opinions. Because there are some that argue it's none of their business, and that if they're hooking up with you, they're consenting. They don't need to know. So I'm glad to see one of them smart enough to think, no, I think lying to someone would actually get me into more harm than trying to hide it. I'm glad someone mentioned it because some of them make excuses not to. Also, the dating. Yeah, you make dating harder for yourself. You actively make dating harder for yourself. Because now you are specifically looking for, I mean, I'd assume a cis man. I'm not sure if you're T for T. Probably not. I feel like if the trans women are going for men, they typically aren't as T for T as the trans women that just are fine with getting with other women. Or other trans women, that is. Yeah, you're gonna make dating a lot harder for yourself. You whittled your dating pool down to presumably only cis men. Cis men that are fine with putting out the idea that they're straight when they really aren't, and they know that, and also fine with being gay. So you're essentially looking for a hyper specific, like a pseudo closeted gay man. And that's gonna be a hard find because a lot of gay men probably are just looking for a gay man. They're probably not looking for someone who has body dysmorphia regarding everything of their body, because that's biological sex impacts the entire body. It's not just genitalia. They love to put that forth. It's not. It impacts everything, and that's why they look at the mirror, they look in their face, and they see issues. There's a lot of gay men that don't want to deal with that. You're gonna have a hard time dating. You're gonna greatly reduce your options when you are not a female, when you are insistent that you cannot be a male, and you have mental issues to go along with that. Ignoring the fact that we're already limited to those of us in our age ranges and in our area of the planet and not already taken, or maybe taken, who knows, that'll open up your options if you're fine with people that'll fuck anyone. That opens up a lot of options for you. I wouldn't suggest it. You're greatly limited. You're looking for the places you're at, not into real women, not strictly gay, fine with dealing with a partner who is potentially shifting through their relationship. And not, oh, they're growing as a person. No, physical shifts, people looking different, is a thing in a relationship. That is fine if your partner changes substantially and you are no longer attracted to them. That's pretty normal. You're getting into relationships that you are intending to make major changes during to yourself. And like it or not, the other person in your relationship has to like you too. And they might not. Maybe they like you now. Maybe they don't like you once you get that bottom surgery. Maybe they think you look a little less weird after the facial feminization surgery. Weird that that's even a thing. I could have sworn there wasn't a difference between cis women and trans women besides the genitalia, but now apparently they need surgeries on their face to look like women. Odd. Odd how that works. But they're not going to want a partner who is wallowing in their appearance and what they are and their existence. A lot of gay men don't want a man pretending to be a woman. And no straight man wants that. I don't care what they call themselves. They're not heterosexual men. They're not heterosexual. But who would have thought? This all complicates everything. It complicates everything. You're still unhappy. Being trans is great, though, guys. Being trans is great. Anyways, I am screaming.